Hello, this is Todd. I am coming out of St. Petersburg, Russia. The Russian language is a very unique language that is spoken by about 150 million native speakers and an additional 110 million speakers who speak it as a second or alternative language. Now, Russian is a language that I think for a long time maybe has flown under the radar in the West for a number of reasons. And what's surprising about it is that while the U.S. was entangled with the Soviet Union in what's called the Cold War nowadays, during this Cold War there was a push, I think, for a lot of conflict of sorts in terms of the kinds of system that the Soviet Union wanted to establish and its satellite states, and the kinds of system that the US and its satellite states wish to establish. And what's surprising about it is that while in the former Soviet Union and other former Soviet bloc countries, there was a push maybe to have more speakers of, say, German and English and other languages, there wasn't a big push in America. And so what many don't understand or don't realize is that Russia is a country that has a very large population, and the language itself is very useful, not only because it's spoken in Russia, but also in neighboring countries. So if you're wishing to do business or do things with the government or technology, any number of areas, and you see a huge influence of Russian, you can look at in areas like IT, the amount of software development or outsourcing or testing, quality assurance testing, and many of these firms are based in places like Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, and other countries of the sort. So you can look at the language from a practical perspective, and there's a lot of utility in it. It's not one of those languages that would be a waste of time. You can actually use it as a practical language, even if you're not living in the Eastern societies. Now, if you do live in the Eastern societies, it's even perhaps more useful because, of course, day-to-day interactions you will find to be in the language. And even still in places like Belarus, it's still classified as essentially a parallel official language. In Ukraine, it used to have the same status, but after the Euromaidan and the coup there, things have changed a little bit. Nevertheless, many people there still do speak Russian, and Ukrainian is very similar to the Russian language. Additionally, if we look at Russian as a sort of bridge language between the East and the West, there's a lot of utility to be had there. And for those who are wishing to come and, say, live in Russia or Ukraine or these places, while there are people who can speak English, it is much more practical if you can speak Russian, because as far as maybe establishing relationships or engaging in work, education, school, things of this nature can be much easier if you speak the language. And even though I'm a student here who is in a master's program in the area of infochemistry, which is a branch of biotechnology, technically the program is in English, but there is still live communication that is done in Russian. And so as a result, I find that even though the program itself is technically in English, knowing Russian is of great utility. And so I think that for any number of purposes, one would find it to be very beneficial. If you're interested in the dating scene, I know that some of you out there may not be, which is totally fine, but if you are still interested in dating, huge benefit, because think about it. There's not a lot of Western guys, unless they're of Slavic origin, who can speak the language. So if you come here, or you're maybe chatting with someone online, or multiple people, multiple girls, then you can find that you would be of a pretty novel status in the sense that it wouldn't be a language that most of your Western counterparts would know. So that would give you a great heads up. You could actually speak in the language of the local people, which is, as I said, just like in any society, it's a huge benefit. While there is more focus on the acquisition of other languages, and especially in some of the big cities like St. Petersburg or Moscow, you'll find more and more people wishing to either learn or who already do speak, say, English or German or other languages. Of course, day-to-day interactions are still predominantly carried out in Russian, so if you're wishing to really establish yourself locally, I cannot recommend it enough. Knowing Russian is a huge benefit. One of the things that you will find nowadays is that with the rise, ascendance, we could say, of online learning education, is that has facilitated the rise in, say, online tutoring and other outlets of this nature, where you can get online tutoring in, say, the Russian language, and it's not even necessary to completely relocate, at least not initially. You can get started where you're at if you want, or you can relocate. There's many different options. One option that I can recommend would be RT Learn Russian. Awesome application. It's online, it's free, so you don't have to pay for it, and it's a really good online learning application if you're just getting started with the language. As I said, this is one of those things that I would look at truly as an investment, because you may not find that initially the payoff is there, but I think over time, if you really put in the time and you really try to master the language, you would find it to be of great benefit. So that could be personal, professional, any number of ways depending on the kind of person you are, what you wish to do. But in Russia and the other CIS countries, there is a lot of Russian spoken, and it's a very useful language to this day. It's not like if you go into the European Union, you may find that the second languages like French, English, German have essentially replaced, not completely, but to some extent have replaced the indigenous languages of some of the smaller countries. You don't see that here. Russian is still the core language, and I would say it's well worth the investment of time and money.